Hey guys, this is a video I've been wanting to make for a very long time, at least since about last summer. That's around the time when I realized that I don't need my salaried full-time corporate job plus benefits to live a happy, successful adult life. As of now, I'm happy to say that finally, I quit my job. I didn't think I would be able to pull it off this soon. I thought I'd be stuck in my job for at least another 5 years. I was so unhappy in my job for a few reasons, but mostly because I felt trapped in it. If you don't know, I was a designer for a media corporation. I worked for a parent company that owns a bunch of smaller brands that produce news and media in the realm of entertainment, music, art, lifestyle, fashion, and live events. Basically everything I stopped giving a shit about as I grew to become a cynical old woman. My job was mostly in graphic design, but I was also tasked with finding clothing and paper stock for branded merchandise, or even designing and editing websites on Webflow. So not only was I just a graphic designer, which is mostly what I signed up for when I started my career, I was also expected to be like a branded merchandise designer, a web designer, and they even threw in some interior design sometimes. To some people, this may seem like a cool job, but the reality is, for me, I didn't care about what any of it all meant. I think working in the media industry also made me realize that the kind of news, people and events and products I was working on didn't matter to me because they didn't reflect my own personal values. I don't care about how much some actress is getting paid to do a movie. Award shows are for famous people to get drunk and congratulate each other. Anything to do with fashion is toxic, and luxury products are for bored elitists. Basically just rich people stuff that I don't care to understand. I'm a simpleton. Plus I've worked in the production side of getting some of this stuff made, and it is absolutely brutal. For a long time I've worked in creative for producing news and live events, and I was expected to give all my waking time and talents to produce something that was exciting only to the CEO and their millionaire friends. But in my pleb opinion, it all meant nothing.
I wanted to find the most meaningless thing that I could come to and join, and here I am.
Just a way for the rich to get richer and feel good about themselves for being rich. Anyway, I'll tell you about how I quit my job. God, that feels good to say. I quit. So I started this job in January 2022. I was senior designer in the creative department for the media corporation I mentioned earlier. Anytime someone in the company, usually the CEO, needs a deck for a presentation, an invitation for a private dinner, or a branded anything, it's creative's job to create the design and work with a print vendor if necessary. It wasn't a hard job, but what made it stressful was, one, my team and I were constantly juggling multiple projects at once. When I first started my job, I was one of 2 people in my department. At the time when I quit, I was one of 3, so we grew a little bit. 2, we would often get last-minute changes to our existing projects, which often delayed the deadlines for everything else. So it was like we were constantly playing catch-up. 3, everything was expected to be of the best quality possible for the cheapest cost available, which is very hard to find in Los Angeles. And 4, both my CEO and manager had very high standards when it came to design, and everything to the last-minute changes just had to be perfect. Eventually, I just got stressed and frustrated trying to keep up with their high expectations all the time, and I just became burned out. One day I stopped to reflect on my job, and I realized that I was just never going to care about the stuff I was working on as much as the people I was working for did. I didn't agree with the high standards and expectations of the company, and I didn't want to condone a work lifestyle of having to drop everything I'm doing just because the CEO suddenly changed their mind. After realizing that, I knew I couldn't stay in my job for much longer. Not only was I burned out from the ridiculous workload I had all the time, but I was bored to literal tears sometimes. I would cry in the bathroom at work, or cry when I got home. I think I was just tired of pretending to care about something that I knew would never bring value into my life, other than it looks good on my resume. They say to fake it till you make it, and I was faking it for so long that I realized even if I made it, all the faking it would not have been worth it. The kind of work lifestyle I was expected to have wasn't something I wanted to buy into. And this was only a few months after starting this job. For added context, before January of 2022, I was working as a designer at an independent media outlet. I left that job because the workload was too much and I didn't care about the work I was doing. Seems to be a common pattern for my work life for the past few years. So I went to a new job at a bigger company in the same industry because I thought maybe I would tolerate the work better if I had more resources at my disposal, at least. To my dismay, I realized it's a shit show everywhere. My greatest fears had come true about my job. I was still working for a CEO that had near impossible expectations and standards. I was still doing a ridiculous buttload of work with a small team that was expected to do all the creative services for the entire corporate staff, plus help out the staff of the smaller brands that corporate owned. because a lot of the smaller brands didn't have a budget for their own art department, which is ridiculous. Basically, I was doing the same job, but with different scenery, a better title, and a little more money. It must just be the nature of the beast that is entertainment news media. It was too much for me to handle, and I didn't feel motivated enough to keep pretending to care about my job for anything other than the money. I was making $75,000 at that job. After taxes, that was almost $5,000 a month. And if I stayed on as a full-time employee, I would have gotten a raise after a year. Even though I was absolutely miserable, money was a major driving factor as to why I stayed in that job for so long. For over a year. So was the guilt of leaving my small team that would have to pick up my work in my absence. I felt like my department would just drown if I left, which made me feel bad about leaving, especially since we had just hired someone who was relatively new at her job. However, I know I can't stay at a job I like just because I'm worried about the approval of some coworkers. People come and go at big companies. It's not that unusual. So I decided it was time to start thinking about quitting. But leaving a job is scary, especially if you don't have another source of income or another job lined up. And I didn't. And I didn't want to go to another design job just to end up at another shit show. My plan was to slowly phase myself out of my job, so I reduced my available hours from 40 hours a week to 24 hours a week, which put me at a part-time status. I did this of January of this year up to when I quit. It felt like I was slowly peeling off a band-aid. Additionally, I started pet sitting and delivering weed to supplement my reduced design income. It wasn't bad for a while, but with 3 part-time jobs, I was working every day. For someone that doesn't really like to work, that was brutal. I had no blank days, which are full days where I have nothing scheduled, no obligations to meet, nothing to worry about. I can wake up at any time I want. On blank days, I can take everything slowly and just do as I please. But when I was working every day, I had no free time to myself, which is ultimately what I wanted out of restructuring my work life. Overall, I want more blank days. I need time to deal with the stress of daily life and existence. I know pet sitting is basically just staying at home with a cat or a dog, but a lot of those fuckers require full-time attention. When I'm taking care of someone else's dog, I'm mostly on the dog schedule, which usually means waking up earlier than I usually do. Although lately I've been getting better at waking up early. So to free up some of my time, I decided to cut one of my 3 part-time jobs. And the one I decided to cut was the one that, although paid me the most, made me the most miserable and least fulfilled. My corporate design job. Had to go. After a few months of doing the job part-time, I told my manager that it was time to start talking about my resignation. He didn't like it, but he respected my decision. I also think he knew that I was unhappy in my job, and that it was time for me to go. To ease my guilt about leaving, I gave them 6 weeks notice. Sounds generous, but that was the amount of time I needed to close out all the projects I was working on at the time. I like to finish what I start, and I wanted to make my exit as painless as possible for everybody. To just slip out without making a fuss. But some of my coworkers found out, and when they did, they told me that they also want to quit. It turns out a lot of people there would rather quit and do something else. I think corporate life just kills the human spirit. So I quit. However, I'm still offering my graphic design services to my former manager on an hourly freelance basis. This way I can feel less bad about leaving my small team and earn a little extra money. As a freelancer, I can also freely choose whether or not I want to take on a project. When I was working 3 part-time jobs, the majority of my income came from designing, but it turns out I can actually pay all my bills just from pet sitting and making deliveries. Now, after transitioning to freelancing, my design work is but a small fraction of my total income. It's not much, but what's nice is that now I can choose if I want to take on the extra work. Or not. I'm not employed by the company anymore, so I have 0 obligation to them. My last day as a salaried employee was April 28th. So far it's been pretty good. I'm getting more sleep, I'm spending less time at a desk other than doing this, and I'm walking outside more, getting more exercise, staying active. And I absolutely do not regret my decision to quit corporate life. Like, at all. I was not well suited for it, and I felt like I just had to force myself into work every day just to get through it. It sucked. It was a constant struggle to do it 8 to 9 hours a day, 5 days a week, plus the occasional work on the weekends. I think it's amazing and horrifying how most people are just expected to work that way for most of their lives. Some people do it all their lives. What the fuck, man? And they're usually just doing it for the money. When I realized I was staying in my job only for the money, I wanted to figure out a way to do something else. And given what I want to do in life, I don't think I need a lot of money anyway. Other than paying rent, I hardly buy anything other than food and bills. And after reevaluating what matters to me in life, it didn't feel like being at that job was a good use of my time anymore. I used to envy people who worked as landscapers, couriers, and dog walkers. They got to work outside and have flexible hours. That's what I want out of a job. To be honest, I don't really like working at a computer at a desk anymore. It hurts my neck, my back, my pussy, and my crack. Henceforth, I'm also not sure how often I'll be making videos anymore. Based on my last upload date, I'm sure you were thinking the same thing. Don't get me wrong, I like making videos, but to be honest, my least favorite part about them is this, filming them. I'm not much of a talker in real life, so it feels weird to talk for a long time. And although I've gotten rid of the most stressful job of my life, I'm still busier than ever. Right now I'm focused on training for a new job. I have homework to complete, meetings to attend, and material to memorize for like the next month. So it's taking up a lot of my free time, and unlike my part-time jobs, I don't get paid to do this. Of course, I think being paid for making these videos would be great, but I'm nowhere near eligible, and I hear you have to deal with a lot of bullshit from YouTube as a YouTuber. I guess I could start accepting donors on Patreon, but it doesn't seem fair to do that at this point. I don't have a consistent upload schedule, and I don't want to ask you guys to pay me to make videos that I may or may not make like every month or so, if ever. I also can't promise that there's going to be another video after this one, at least not anytime soon. Between working, studying, and picking up dog shit, I may not get the time to write, record, edit, and upload a video as often as you'd like. I'm a terrible YouTuber. If you're subscribed or you're new to this channel and you've made it this far into the video, there must be something about this channel that you like, so thank you for sticking around. I do hope to get more time to work on my videos because they're fun to make and fun to look back on. And for the longest time, my corporate job was just draining and sucking all of my creative energy, and I finally have more of that energy back to use for my own personal projects. For reasons I don't understand, it feels like working at a corporation just makes your life suck more, like more than it needs to. I feel like the stresses of daily life on its own is just painful enough. Every day I have to take care of my health, my relationships, my debts. The list of bullshit goes on and on. Why put a stressful job on top of it? I know jobs are generally supposed to make your life easier because they provide you with money and security, but is the trade-off of devoting most of your time and energy to the arbitrary goals of a single company worth it for you? For a lot of people, it is. But for me, I don't intend to go back to a job like that. It made me sad and frustrated that that was my life. And at this time in my life, I want to try making money by doing jobs that are less soul-crushing. I don't think I'll be a millionaire, but I feel more at peace with my work life because I'm finally pursuing work that I find value in. Maybe I haven't found the right industry for me to continue being a designer, but that's okay because right now I'd rather take care of other people's pets and deliver their weed than use my design skills to create someone else's vision. I think I need to make the time to create my own vision, whatever it is. Right now I'm taking life a little easier and figuring out how I can be happy in my work life before I die. Maybe we can all figure it out together. Yeah, that's it. That's it for now. I'll see you later. Maybe. Soon. I don't know when. Bye.